Welcome to the Tarot Tapestry, a weaving of self-discovery, where three tarot mavens put their heads and hearts together to offer their wisdom and insights about the tarot. We hope that you find this helpful in your personal journey to self-discovery and growth.
Join us as we explore ways to use tarot for self-reflection and self-correction.
Together, we'll discover new ways to use tarot to weave threads of understanding into the tapestry of your life. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Tarot Tapestry. And today we will be talking about the new moon in Aquarius. And it just so happens that one of my co-hosts, Angie, happens to be an Aquarian.
I am.
Yes, you are. And, maybe since you are the Aquarian, you might want to start us off.
Sure. Well, Aquarians, as we all know, are wonderful people. We're all very kind. No. There are certain things people say about Aquarians. One of the things that I'm just going to debunk right off the bat is that we are emotionless robots. Like we don't care about things. It's like just because I can tell myself to settle down and you no. Um, um but Aquarius is usually thought of being as very independent and maybe intellectual, sometimes a little bit detached, rebellious, and sort of thinking outside the box, very individualistic kind of people, eccentric, maybe, is something I think of when I think of the Aquarius zodiac sign. I've probably done more reading about this one than the rest of them since it's my sun sign. And of course, in the tarot, the sign of Aquarius is represented by the star card. And I'm going to show a little picture of that right now. There you go. The star card in the RWS shows a naked woman. She's kind of down on one knee. She has her front leg, her foot's in the water, her knee and her back foot are on the ground, and she has a pitcher in each hand. She's pouring water into the water that I think is like representative of um, the emotional sort of realm. And then she's pouring water onto the earth that is more of the physical realm. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stars surrounding a middle big yellow star over her head that is 8 pointed, 8 equal points to the star. And so that's the and there's a tree. I can't remember what kind of tree it is, but I know it's a red ibis bird in the tree behind her. It's a very relaxing card. It's very kind of inclusive. It gives this feeling of like magic and science blending perfectly, and there's enough for everyone, enough of everything for everyone here in this spot. Which is like the highest ideal expression of the Aquarian archetype, I guess. But nobody's perfect. Aquarius is a fixed sign, so they are often a bit stubborn, especially once they have their minds made up about something. And so yeah, that's kind of that, like that's my feeling on the whole overarching archetype, and then we can talk about other cards in the deck that kind of add up to that, maybe that perfect expression in the star card.
Sure. I mean, Linda, did you want to add anything else to what you know,
Well,
uh,
I will say that I don't have a lot of experience with people who are Aquarians. I've known Angie for a long time. Um, and I have a brother who's an Aquarius, but I think he's a little out of the type because he might be neurodivergent and on the spectrum. But when we were doing our planning meeting yesterday, and yes, we do sometimes do a planning meeting before we just jump right in. I pulled a card for this, and and again, I'm using the Guardian of the Night Tarot by MJ Cullinane, who did also the Crow deck for January. So this is the deck I've been using. And I drew the 10 of Wands. I don't know if you can see it too well. It's salmon going up upstream. But the wands are being used to make these little fish ladders. I call them fish ladders, that they can jump from one little area to the next area. And actually, even though generally the Ten of Wands is kind of someone who's burdened by carrying all these wands and it looks like they're going to drop one or two, and the card is generally about maybe you're doing too much or trying to take on too much or just delegate, that kind of thing. This card, I feel like the wands are making the burden of swimming upstream easier. And so one of the things I got out of this card is, if you're carrying this bundle of stuff, maybe set it down and figure out how to use some of those things. So my key for this card, and for the Aquarius part, is use what you have. Because Aquarians are, as Angie said, a little eccentric and outside the box thinkers. Sometimes they may have the solution right there if they just think about it in a different way. And sometimes something that you've been carrying around and maybe you think it's a burden, you reach a point or you reach a situation where it's actually the perfect tool to fix that problem. But you just have to be aware of it and have to be willing to maybe look at it a little differently to achieve that.
I really like that, Linda. When you were talking about like tools, things that you have at home, resources that you can use, when
Yeah.
you think about creating new products or new ideas or a new patent, most of that occurs from things that have already previously been created, and you're just like expanding on that, or taking different technologies and different ideas from different things and putting it together, or adding more to that creative process, and then
Well,
you're
it's like
creating something that's new.
Thomas Jefferson was not an inventor, but he was an innovator. And
Mhm.
that's what he did. He took things that people already had, but like for instance, he invented this swivel chair thing that he used so he could, and he had a thing where you could write on either side of it, depending on what he was doing. And so people had chairs, people had things, but he managed to put it all together to where it had an expanded function that worked
Yeah.
for him, and so that he innovated that. He didn't invent a chair. He just made
It's
it.
like, yeah, using
Yeah,
what you've got for a purpose different
right.
than what the inventor had intended, like using a butter knife as a screwdriver
Right,
if you have to,
exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
So yeah, this and again, always, when we do tarot, always we get a card where we think we know the meaning of it, and we look at it for a particular question and something pops out, like this just popped out. It's like they're not carrying these rods, they're actually using them to help get to their goal. And so I just thought that was really cool.
That's innovative.
Yes.
There you go. Okay, so I just wanted to add a little, I mean, I think we pretty much covered most things about, the zodiac sign of Aquarian, but maybe I can just add a little bit to that with talking about the planet that's associated with Aquarian, which is Uranus. Uranus, different people say it different ways. And one of the phrases for that is the Great Awakener. And for some reason, thinking about this new moon, and I also do a new moon circle in our symposium. And I was very drawn to this planet per se and what this planet represents. So that idea of the Great Awakener just reminds me of like opening your eyes, seeing what's out there, thinking about your future, and going and getting it. Right. That's kind of like the first things that I thought about. But some of the other characteristics of it, it's out of the box thinking, which is exactly what we were talking about, right? It inspires groundbreaking ideas, scientific discoveries, and advancements in technologies. And yesterday during our planning session, we were talking about what could be some other tarot cards that we think of when we're thinking about these characteristics or these traits. And for that one, I thought about the Fool, right? Because like you're starting off right away with just like a clear mind and saying, I want to do something different. I want to try something different. Um, and then, like another one is symbolizes the desire to break away from traditions and challenge the status quo, like a rebellion. And I started to think about that. And for me personally, I took that idea of a rebellion and was thinking of more of an internal rebellion, right? Like rebelling against my outdated beliefs, my outdated traditions, you know, challenging my status quo, like taking all of that you might think about externally and bringing it in. And for the card, so it also encourages independence and non conformity, like your freedom. And I thought about the I'm not the hermit, the Hierophant reversed, the devil, and then the Seven of Wands. Like I really like the Seven of Wands. In the traditional Rider-Waite, they're standing on top of what looks like a hill, and they have all of these wands that are look like they're attacking them, and they're just like standing there. It's like they're defending themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're challenging what all of those other wands are trying to make them, believe or desire or want. Then some other things were unexpected events that can disrupt your routine, like something that can shock you. That's part of a trait, and that reminded me of the tower, right? And it's
Yeah.
it's beautiful to know that the tower comes right before, or I should say, the star comes right after the tower, which is that time of like healing, of inspiration, of finding peace and solace and knowing that things are moving in the right direction. It's like after everything crumbles, like you can now start to build. Um, some other things were, and then the last one was um, Uranus also urges people to embrace their quirks and their authentic selves, which I loved. And that made me think of the Queen of Wands and the Queen of Cups. And I think the Queen of
Mm-hmm.
Cups more for like embracing and loving and showing compassion for yourself. And then the Queen of Wands is just like, I'm going to go and do what I want. And if you don't like it, well, I don't really give a shit, because this is what I want to do, and
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I wanted to mention that. Oh, one other card that I did want to mention too was Justice and the Queen of Pentacles,
Mm.
for more of that trait for Aquarians that are really about working with the collective and the community and wanting to, make the world just like a better place, and how we can start with our community. And the Justice and the Queen of Pentacles just very much, the justice was like standing up for equality, and that Queen of Pentacles is like embracing your community and doing what you need to do to kind of help them, um, prosper, do what you
Yeah.
can to help your community. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, I wanted to say too, Saturn is also a ruler of Aquarius, and Saturn is called the strict teacher, and that's what's wrong with me. I have both of those, both of those things going on in my head at the same time. But I love how you picked cards to represent the traits that you associate with the sign. And like I was t saying in the beginning, I think the star is kind of the most elevated expression, the idealistic, what you're shooting for, card. It's so nice and everything. And so I thought it would be interesting to pick one card from each suit of the deck to see to represent traits that I think would all sort of blend together to make like that perfect scenario come together. And what I came up
So,
with,
and I just want to say that I'm really interested to know if we overlap, because there's already been some interesting stuff that has happened since Kate started to talk, and you'll hear about it in a little bit. But even
yeah,
though, because we're picking these We're not just blind
Just
drawing them. We're picking them as what we
intuition,
think.
not,
And so
yeah.
I'm really curious to see if
Hmm.
how much, if any, overlap there is. So let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So in the wands, I picked the Nine of Wands because I think that represents like uh the stubbornness, the stick-to-itiveness of like standing up for what and who you believe in and what you think. And it's a very passionate card. Like that person is in the card is very tired. They have a bandage on their head, but they're like, I am not stopping. This is, something important to me. So I think that's very Aquarian. It's like they're not just defending their right to do what they want. They're defending your right to do what you want too. Like this is something that they will not stop at in my, you know, this sort of everybody gets to be who they are and do what they like, and it's just none of your damn business if you don't like it, if they're not bothering you, stay over there. And in the cups for Aquarians emotionally, I picked the Two of Cups because I think that shows sort of the all-encompassing like big picture way that, Uranus en encourages us all to think and be of I'm not just, if I'm emotionally attached to you, I'm not just emotionally attached to you because of what you can do for me. I'm also here for you. It's very back and forth, very supportive, straightforward, honest, blunt, sometimes way to have a relationship, which I think that kind of captures both the good and the bad, or light and dark, whatever you want to say, part of being all of the eye contact I make is intense and awkward, just like it is in this card between the two figures. So maybe that's why I thought of that card for this. And for swords, I picked the Queen of Swords because she is both very intuitive and also able to see through a lot of nonsense, even when it's her own. If she's and this is like the most this is when the intellect and the intuition come together, I think, because it's that part is, I think, emotionless. When the few times that I've been in that kind of a flow, I have just known the truth that I was seeking. I didn't feel a certain way about it. I didn't care how anyone else felt about it. It just, it is what it is. And that's like the very um I think that's where a lot of the stubbornness comes from too, especially when you've had that experience of, nope, this is it, and I know it. And that's very Queen of Swords to me. She's not being mean by saying the truth. She's just saying the truth because nothing else is gonna work until you do
Do
that. And
do
then
no
in the
harm, but
Pentacles,
take no shit.
exactly. Exactly. I'm gonna have that tattooed on me somewhere. And then for the Pentacles, I picked the Eight of Pentacles because uh there's always a level of, when you talk about being innovative and creative, you often have to try more than one time for something to work. And it's kind of that, okay, yeah, it didn't work that time, but what if I do it this way a little bit different and I just refine it and refine it and refine it and refine it. And pretty soon you're doing something that looks easy to other people, maybe like this guy here making his perfect little pentacles, but he probably struggled in the beginning. So I think that's the perfectionism, like also that has two sides to it too. There's a lot of perfectionism, I think, in the Aquarian um archetype, if you want to call it that. And then for the darker sides, like I had trouble picking a good major arcana card 100%. I picked death reversed because or death, however you the most stubborn, like I will not move, I'm not going to look, I'm going to fight every, that stubborn dogmatic stubbornness, I guess. And for the wands, I picked the 10 of Wands because Aquarius that kind of aloofness or detachment can often, it's like, oh, just let me do it kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll just do it myself. And for the cups, the emotions, I picked the four because, that person is either very detached from what they're staring at, or they're just in their own little world, or they've decided how they feel and they're not taking in anything new, no new information. Um, in the swords, I thought that the darker side of Aquarius can kind of look like the Eight of Swords, where you are either the figure in the middle of the swords, or you're the one with the swords. Like, you get so caught up on a thought and it has to be right, and you won't entertain any other points of view or allow yourself to look for more information because you're just excuse me, frozen. You decided you were right. You're doing it this way because it's how you've always done it. And dang it, that's not going to change. And for the pentacles, I picked the Five of Pentacles. And that's kind of the I'll starve and freeze to death before I ask for help card in this situation. So I think, the biggest, in my experience as an Aquarian, I think my biggest stumbling block personality wise really is like being stubborn about something. Like, clearly it's not working. It didn't work for them. It's not going to work for me. I need to change my mind. And that's how I've mostly gotten myself into sticky situations in my life. I don't know if that's like a biased viewpoint since I am an Aquarius, but that was my take on that.
I absolutely love that. It was amazing. And Linda, did you want to share yours?
Yes, but I didn't complete the assignment because I read it, but I didn't hit my brain. So I have the cards that are, closely represented. I have the major arcana card, but I didn't pick the ones for the shadow aspect from the rest of the back from the suit. So,
That's okay. I mean, we'll let you get away with it this time, I guess.
okay.
But next time,
So,
public vlogging.
so for the wands, I actually picked the Four of Wands, um, because one of the things one is magpies, and I know that magpies are just kind of chattery, and they're very smart, and they can be very stubborn, and they can be a little bit mischievous. And the Four of Wands to me is about working in community more. Um, oh, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, working in your local community, or whatever community means to you. And one of the things that I was actually checked out that book when we did that workshop a couple weeks ago. It's called "You Were Born for This." It's an astrology book that was recommended in a workshop we
Oh,
did.
yeah.
So I checked it out of the library, and I was looking at the real short Aquarius sun thing, and it talks about working with systems, and that kind of made me think of you with your yoga, studying the sutras and the whole system of yoga, not just
Hmm.
on the floor and doing the positions,
Yeah.
but the stuff behind it and all that. And that's what this card kind of makes me think about is how you can design and develop communities, i.e. systems of support and things that help you in your life, because you can't do it all by yourself, and you're going to be a part of a community, whether it's an online community or in your neighborhood somewhere, or just your neighbors around you, or whatever. Your family could be local, distant, however it works for you. So that's why I picked that card. For the Cups card, I picked the Seven of Cups. And for me, because when I tend to think of Aquarian, the Aquarian nature of Aquarian, I think of a lot of um, hands and a lot of pies, or irons, a lot of irons in the fire. And I think this card kind of asks that you make a decision. And we can start a lot of projects, but then we lose steam on him. And so we've got these half projects all over the place. And so I think the Seven of Cups kind of speaks to that. And like, pick one and stick with it. And it's nice to be interested in a lot of things, but if you want to feel like you've accomplished something, you kind of have to get to the end of at least one thing before you're scattered all into these other directions. Excuse me. For the swords, it might seem a little different, but I picked the Seven of Swords because have I have done a lot of work with the Seven of Swords, and I know it can feel kind of deceitful sometimes, or that somebody's trying to get away with something. But for me, I think there's an underlying level of strategy there, and I also think that when you pick that card, it is kind of an admonition or a warning to stay honest and
That
not.
is actually my I don't remember what it's called, but with my Spirit Keepers Tarot, there's a lot of exercises, the
You're
book
right.
readings, and the Seven of Swords, the Rogue, is like my uh it's me in the like the deck is like, hey, this is you, and that is exactly what it is. It's staying in your integrity.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
sometimes you break the rules a little, or you bend them, or you don't play by the rules because you decide you're going to play a different game, but
Well, and
you
it's
really do
almost
it
like it's not a crime to not follow an order that's wrong.
right.
Somebody gives
Exactly.
you an order that is wrong, and you say, I'm not going to do that, or you get in a situation where you have to choose between going along with what the group is doing and standing in your own integrity. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to have a lot of that coming in the next
Yes, definitely.
little while.
In every walk of life, basically.
Right. And so then for the Pentacles, I chose the Page of Pentacles. In
Oh,
this one,
I
it's
like that
represented by
card.
an octopus, and it talks about how the octopus is very flexible and very agile, and of course has all these arms. And in the traditional card, it's the little guy juggling. No,
Mm.
that's the Two of Pentacles. But to me the pages kind of had that Aquarian enthusiasm, that youthful kind of enthusiastic energy, and and this guy is like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want to like, ooh, this is really, and so that kind of struck me. And for the major arcana card, it's a little different for the shadow. I picked Temperance, um,
Mm.
which comes, doesn't that come
A few cards
after
before.
death? It comes out,
Yeah.
Temperance comes after death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just feel like, well, frogs are kind of interesting creatures because frog eggs they can almost like fertilize themselves. Like you could fertilize a frog egg by pricking it with a pin, and it'll develop into a tadpole. And so that's a very interesting power in itself. And I feel like, and then there's the whole in the traditional view, there's the whole person with the cups, and they're doing the alchemy, and they're mixing the elements and the ethers, and they're coming up with something different. And I feel like that is, if you can get the Aquarian person to kind of calm down a little bit and not being so woo, and they can focus on the
What
thing.
are you trying to say?
I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm speaking in general terms. And if you want to take it personally, you can. But I'm just saying, for that kind of energy, when you calm down and you focus on what you're doing, then you can create the alchemy and come up with something really cool.
It was great,
Okay.
Linda. You both did
Yeah.
such a fabulous job. But Linda, if anybody did not read the memo and do the correct assignment, that would be me because I did not do what you guys did. I just kind of
I love that though.
talked
I mean,
about all different cards. I did
yeah.
not stick with
Well, see,
with
that's
the
why I was
individual
confused,
suits.
because I was like, is she pulling the card pursuit? What is she doing?
Yeah. Well, I like this
Oh.
though because it's uh good grief.
I'm keeping you guys on your toes. Is that like the
Yeah.
appropriate term? I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Well,
Kate,
the
you
interesting
made a
thing is
spread.
we had some overlaps with numbers. We had sevens and
Hmm.
fours. Okay. And you actually pulled the 10 of wands, which is what the card, this one I pulled just blind because I just pulled it yesterday before our meeting. I was like, okay, what's that's going to be? But still, duplication. There we go.
Well, and with the spread that Kate made and how we split it up, the four questions,
Yeah.
there's I got 10 of swords for one of those. So that's going to be interesting to talk about as well.
Ooh,
So,
well, maybe that's a great segue into the next
yes.
part of this episode. So, like before we get started with the tarot spread, I would encourage, like for the for our listeners right now, when we think about the new moon and using the new moon to help set intentions, ultimately that's what people use the new moon for, right? Is to set intentions. So if that is something that you're interested in doing, we would encourage you to explore all parts of, the Aquarian traits, and the planets, and do some of your own reading and really hone in on what aspect or what traits really speak to you. Because, when you're setting intentions and you want to manifest something, it needs to be something that touches you, right? It needs to be something that is speaks to you. So we've given like a lot of information about it, and it can be a little confusing. But we would just encourage you to, really think about what does all of this mean to you, and what part of it can I take? What parts of it can I take and say, okay, this really resonates with me, and this is something that I think I want to work on for this, this new moon cycle. And maybe with the spread that we're now going to do, that might help them kind of narrow it down as
I,
well.
I really like your spread for that. That's what I was just going to tell you that your
Yeah.
spread, I think, does the questions that you asked in
Yeah.
that
It's
does a great
it's a
job.
really cool spread. Really cool spread. I like it a lot.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you. So, Angie, do you want to? So, what we decided to do is well, I'm going to read all four questions just so
That's
that
what I
our
was going to
readers,
say. We'll read the
yeah,
whole thing. Yeah.
yeah, just read. I said readers again, so that our
Ah,
listeners can know what they are. And
But
then
you
we
are going to read it.
decided
You're going to read it. So,
I'm gonna read. Yes, you're right. Um, and then after I read the questions, then we'll talk a little bit about how we decided to kind of divvy up the questions. So now, if you are a person that likes to use like a spread as far as what it visually looks like, you can look at these questions and put them in like a diamond shape, which is supposed to be representative of the star, right? So the first question is, where am I being called to embrace out of the box thinking and independence? And if I get this correct, that should be on the bottom points. With what new idea, path, or perspective is ready to surface in my life? What guiding light or inspiration can help me move forward with confidence? And then the last one is, how can I align my goals with the greater good and inspire positive change? And the first question and the last question, the first question would be at the bottom of the star, the last question would be on the top of the star, and those two in the middle can be on either side, and however you choose to put them is basically up to you. So what we did was we decided that we would all pick a card for question number one and talk about it. And then each of us took a different question and pulled a card and decided to give our thoughts about that.
yeah. Do you want to go first, Kate? Do you want to go? What did you get for the first question?
Sure. So where am I being called to embrace out of the box thinking and independence? I used an Oracle deck and the Tarot deck for this one. So the Oracle card that I picked was called Union, and it comes from the Vintage Wisdom Oracle deck. And the tarot card that I picked was the Six of Pentacles. So for union, and I really, if you guys don't mind, and I know this might take a little bit, I really wanted to read what the guidebook said about union because I just thought it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is just a part of it. It says, whether you whether you seek spiritual union from within or a physical connection with another, the search to rise above the surface of illusion towards the light of divine understanding is a worthy goal. We often seek the missing parts of ourselves in others only to meet with disappointment. The craving can drive many to addiction, forever searching for the elusive other on the realm of extremes. Though the relentless cycle of trial and error over lifetimes, we can learn to love and accept ourselves just as we are and looking our attachments to outcomes. Meditation and sincere self inquiry help steer you towards a deeper meaning of union by allowing it to emerge naturally within, like the lotus bloom rising from its depths. The thoughts, values, and exchanges you seek to cultivate offer vital clues about how you perceive and experience this basic need. Notice any areas of resistance where energy is blocked. Now may be a good time to address and release buried feelings or preconceptions with the transforming power of union's connecting frequency. Union suggests the possibility of new relationships, new friendships, creative projects, or meditation. The entwining of the energy of union seeks authentic expression. The heavenly energy represented by this card could also signify the answer to prayer. So basically, what I got out of all of this was the union of, let me just go to where I have it in my notes, is I see this idea of union as a relational union between me and my authentic self, you know, and I think about forming this union between who I am right now and who I want to be. And how can I join those two together to be that person that I want to be like that authentic self. And, when I talk about authentic self, that's like a concept that in my opinion, is kind of an out of the box thinking because it's a
Mhm.
concept that is talked about in a much smaller community. But if you go outside of our community and people that maybe are not into self-help and tarot and divination and that idea of authentic self is not a common thing, right? Like people don't walk around going, "Oh, I want to be my authentic self and I'm going to try to do these things to be that way." So I like how I look at it as it is an out of the box type of thinking, right? And it is, where's the question? I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. And it is independence. It's removing myself, right, from the from societal norms and expectations, right? Me being who I want to be and my authentic self is true to me. It is not true to what society shows me or dictates to me or tells me that I need to be. And that idea of trying to find this union um, between who I am and who I want to be is like a rebellion against society, right? Against what
Mhm.
people are constantly telling me and all of these other waves of what's the word? Like all these things that society is telling me I have to be, my roles, what I should look like, what I should do,
Fighting
all,
against
all of that.
conformity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it's like we just want you to be this way, and we don't really care if that's how you feel on the inside. You just have to act like this and look like this on the outside.
Mhm.
exactly, so I appreciate that this card came up. And then with the Six of Pentacles, it's like, how do I find that balance? Right? Like how do I harmonize who I am with still living in society, right? Like I still have to go out there and be part of society. I still have to live in this
Mhm.
world. But how do I harmonize that? How do I find that balance, to be able to do that, and I don't have the answer now for that. That's just like something that kind of needs to be worked on. But yeah, so like I'm just trying to think if I got anything else. Um, Oh, and then I was listening to a podcast today, and a woman said something, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's like the Six of Pentacles." She was talking about when we're growing, and she talked about how sometimes our internal growth doesn't align with our external environment, right?
Mm.
So like we're growing and we're expanding on the inside, but where we are surrounding ourselves, the environment that is there, it doesn't align, and then there's like this clash and sometimes this resistance that you might hit. And I guess also if you think about harmonizing, it's harmonizing my external environment so that it aligns with the internal growth that's going on for me. So I found that to be very
No, I
very
really like
interesting.
that for this that
Yeah,
interpretation
yeah,
of the
that was
Six of
great.
Pentacles too, because it is talking about your physical reality and that give and take between I need a little more here and a little less there, maybe, and
Right.
that balance so you can find yourself in the middle.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Absolutely. So that's all I got, ladies. That was it.
that was great.
That was
Thank you.
awesome.
All right, who's
Me.
going to be the next one?
Okay.
Angie, there you go.
For the first question, I'm gonna reread it real quick here, if I can. Where am I being called to embrace out of the box thinking and independence? I pulled the Ten of Swords, which, if you're familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, shows somebody,
That's out of the box right there.
yeah, they need a box now. They're like they're prone. There are 10 swords sticking out of their back. Their head is turned away from the viewer, and they're looking out across it looks like a lake towards some blue mountains, and there's a pretty sunset off in the distance, but the sky above them is black, and it's just like they're black, dead over. So I think when it comes to thinking out of the box, this card tells us to kind of embrace being vulnerable and honest and accepting where you have to just leave it alone, and you have to kind of be not, I mean, like, they're down for the count. You don't have to like be tough and strong about this. It's okay to, you know, sit down and stay there for a minute. Um, and to sort of uh realign, find new territory. Um, so I think there are some things maybe where I'm pushing a little too hard mentally that I just need to like let go of. That's my personal interpretation of the card for myself. And like I said, I'm a little bit stubborn about some things. There's some things I don't want to give up, but that I kind of need to in order
And
to
the universe keeps saying,
hmm
give it
yep,
up.
give it up, let go or
Give
be
it up to your
dragged,
prone.
right? So how about you, Linda? What did you get for the first
Well,
question?
I thought this is really going to be interesting. So
Mhm.
this was a jumper, jumped right out of the deck. The Fool.
Mm,
Oh.
So that was one of the ones that Kate had talked about.
hmm
Um, and obviously, if you're going to embrace outside the box thinking and independence, and you're getting ready to walk off of a cliff, or in this case, the rabbit looks like it's getting ready to confront the wolf, which might not be the safest thing for the rabbit, but it would certainly be adventurous to do that. Um,
hmm
is just that. I mean, for me, the fool is one of the cards that I feel a lot of affinity to, because I have kind of left things behind myself many times in my life for various reasons, some good, some not so good. um, but things turned out okay, every time.
hmm
I left many belongings behind. I still have belongings. I found more belongings. I found more things. I gave away some things. I let things go. Things came back to me. And I think that the Fool, when you just say, I'm going to trust the universe and I'm just going to see what happens. And people look at you like, are you out of your mind? It's like, nope, I'm thinking outside the box and I'm just going to trust that the universe is going to show me where I need to go.
And
And
that's good
bye,
because
off the cliff, off the cliff.
you got the star card right there to let you
Mm.
know that the
Yeah.
universe is
Oops.
there with you and guiding you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that those people who are comfortable doing outside of the box things or being open to ideas that are not traditional or however you want to describe it, I think there's more than a little bit of the fool in them, and I think
Definitely.
that's a great way to, I think the more open you can continue to be, the more accepting of different pathways that come to you, different opportunities that if you were a little bit more closed down, you wouldn't even recognize. I think that keeps you it keeps you optimistic. It keeps you, and I feel like it keeps you young mentally. Your body is your body, and for whatever reason, we all get a little old and creaky and achy as we go along. But I think if you keep your spirit open and you're mentally open to things, that's where you stay youthful. That's where you stay young.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to keep your brain stimulated, right? You have to
Right.
keep your not
Hmm.
even just your brain, but your senses stimulated, right? And the only way to keep them stimulated is to try different ways of stimulating them.
Oh
They
yeah,
talk
new
about
stuff.
yeah, so they talk about too, like when you're dieting or when you're exercising, that there comes a point where what you're doing is not working anymore because your body needs to be shocked. It needs
Right.
Hmm.
something new in order to get it started again. So it's that same concept.
Well, it's
Um,
like, and it's also like the whole neuroplasticity thing of, you know, um, neural pathways and creating new ones and driving. It's like brush your teeth with your left. If you're right-handed, brush your teeth with your left hand. Brush your if you're
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand? It's a lot
I
more
can't, I
difficult
am, my
than you
right
think it
side
is.
is just here to make sure my left side isn't lonely. Like there's nothing, this hand is good for nothing, pretty much,
And
you
see,
know.
I try really hard. Like even when I was doing secretarial work and administrative work, and I trained myself to use my mouse with my left hand. I move my foot pedal back and forth. I do the same thing with my sewing machine. I try to go
Mhm.
to the same place in a different way, just so that I don't groove that. In my brain, I have one groove and
Mhm.
no other grooves, and so I like
That's
to have a
that's
lot of
a
grooves.
that's kind of a fun game. I might have to try that sometime, like try drawing with my other hand. And that
Yeah,
is too, like in the fool saying, where do I need to think out of the box? It's basically saying just keep your mind open and
right.
the box will open.
And honestly,
Things will fall into the
when
box.
I was doing morning pages, because I do not write by hand anymore for very long. Okay, nobody
Hmm.
does, right? My hand would get so
I do.
cramped that I actually started using my left hand to write with. It's legible, barely,
Hmm.
but it gave my right hand a break. And so I felt like I need to practice this more often because it
Neat. Yeah.
activates different parts of your brain.
Hmm. Cool.
I tried that. I hurt my wrist and I couldn't write with my right hand at all. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm at work. I got to do some writing. I have to use my left hand. And oh my God, was it
It's
like so frustrating? And
it
it
is.
takes so much patience but what the lesson that I did learn from it is it gave me a better perspective for my students on
Yeah,
what it's like for them to write. Like they're kindergarteners, right? So they
right.
still don't have,
That
a
coordination.
yes, right? And they don't have the strength or the what's the word? To write for a period of time. What is that
Yeah,
called?
they
The
don't have the
endurance or the
endurance. Uh-huh.
yeah, to do that. So, and as teachers, you're like, okay, come on, come on. And then they're like slow, and you're like, come on, you can do this. And now it's like, oh, but you know what? That was me.
Yeah.
And don't rush me because I'm going to turn around and say, fuck you, leave me alone. I'm trying my hardest, you know?
And it's
So it
Yeah.
like,
did.
and after I do it, like if I journal every day or if I write every day and my hand gets tired and I do 10 minutes with my left hand every day, I see that it's easier and it looks better. And I figure out a better way to hold a pencil and move it or pen and move it across the page. But at first, it was like, why do I have this
Okay.
hand? It doesn't want. What's like
Oopsie, new
this?
obsession unlocked. Now I need to be ambidextrous.
So, and I
I
am
need to
ambidextrous. I
treat
We'll
do a
have an
lot
myself
of
to a
things with.
episode
I
pencil.
one
do a
day
lot of
on
things with
being
my
Yeah,
left hand.
ambidextrous.
I do a lot
there
of
you
things with
go.
my left hand anyway. When I worked in the hotel business and I was doing banquet waiting, I was the only person that lifted their tray with their left hand.
Hmm.
Everybody else carried it, and I'm like, I gotta use my right hand to open the door and do other pour coffee and stuff. I gotta carry this tray with
Hmm.
this, it was interesting.
Neat.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's
So
get back
who?
to our
Yeah,
Yeah.
spread. Yeah. So
yeah.
number two was, I believe, Linda. Like,
Yes,
what
it was
new
me.
idea, path, or perspective is ready to surface in my life?
Guess what, Kate? I got the Hierophant.
Hmm.
Oh.
This is an interesting card because this card, and then this one is like the wise rat teaching the little ratlings about things. And they talk about ratatouille in the book, the description, and how people get put into boxes. They go into institutions, and higher places like to put you in boxes, and the Hierophant is the looked at as the person who's like the wise scholar, the person who knows whatever system you're in, whether it's the priest in the church or the professor in a college or a mentor or something like that. And you may not like the box that you're having to be put in when you go to school or when you start a job or when you want to be creative and they're saying, no, you've got to do life drawing before you can do this and that and the other thing and to learn anatomy and all that good stuff. But the other thing that I like about this card is that I think it also tells you that at some point you have to be your own mentor. You have to again, it's that personal integrity, it's that authentic self, it's that thing where you say, okay, I've done this, I've learned enough. I feel like it's time for me to be a fool and jump off the cliff because I want to go in this direction because I feel like this is the best direction for me. And I don't need any more. I mean, I can come back and ask questions if I need to, but I don't have to sit at somebody's feet now and listen to everything they know because I want to go out in my direction and discover things on my own and not just be told about it.
I love that. That reminded me of the chair story that you were saying before. I don't know why, but it reminded me of that, right? Like being innovative, right? So you
Oh,
have this
right.
thing. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's not the same as what you say it should be, but it works and it's great and people like it and I'm gonna do
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
I love that. All right. I have number three. What guiding light or inspiration can help me move forward with confidence? And I pulled the Oracle card from the same deck and I got patience. And I kept the Six of Pentacles because as I was reading patience, I was like, you know what? The Six of Pentacles just fits right along with it. And basically, it's in the book, it says patience gives you faith in the bigger picture and helps you to stand back from your attachments. And I really like that because it does, right? So it's also the star. It gives you the faith in the bigger picture. Patience allows you to keep that picture in your mind and know that I am going to get there. I may not get there as fast as I want, right? And in this day and age where everything is so fast paced and it's instant gratification, and I want this now, I want this now, I want this now, um, patience is even harder to keep. And I have, but this was patience was like something I've been working on. for 2 years now. And the fact that I got it again was just like a smack in the face, like, oh no, you haven't done enough with patience. You need to keep on, working with it. But I do love it. And I loved when the book said it helps you to stand back from your attachments. So when I first read it, I didn't understand what it meant, but then it was like, those and I'm going to refer to my attachment for this lunar cycle has to do with my negative talk, right? And the attachment that I have to my first go-to is to be critical of myself in a negative way, right? And standing back, that's what patience does. It gives you that room to be like, okay, so I just said this, but you know what? Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to, speak to it in a different way. And it's like all these other things that I'm learning to do. I started reading this book called Detox Your Thoughts. And it's all about that. It's all about how to deal with this very negative self-talk that you have. So patience allows me that time to try those strategies that I've been learning about so that I can, like you said, Linda, change, my neural pathways so that that is not my first go-to is to be critical and negative of myself, and where does Six of Pentacles come into that? But it's finding equilibrium in emotional matters. Those
You
that
know,
that was like one of
I
the
started doing something like that with compliments. It start because you got to start somewhere, and sometimes you got to start with baby steps. I started with compliments, where people would say something to me, and you know how, and I think it's the thing that women, whether we're taught to do it, not don't be proud, don't be, you know, I would just say it was really hard. And, oh, that's a really nice thing you got on, or whatever it is. Oh, this whole thing, I got it at the thrift store. Or, just say, thank you. I appreciate that. And
Mhm.
don't say anything else. Now, if they say, well, where did you get it? Or go on with the conversation, but just to say, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And that was it.
yeah, not such an
And that's
easy.
hard. It's
It
Yes.
easy.
is
It's
very
easy, but when
difficult
you're
to
used
change
to
the
doing all
way.
that back talk, oh, I don't really deserve a compliment and
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. Then what,
Yeah.
you
It's
just,
really
you
hard
have
to
to
change
stop.
the
It's
way
like,
we think of ourselves. And one of the things that I have started to do is to, when I am feeling bad about myself or saying mean things to myself, is to recognize that that is part of me that has been hurt, that needs me
Mm,
to sit down and say, I see you. I understand why you're scared or sad or angry or whatever. But you can, it's okay now. You come sit with me. I got you. And
that's
often
right.
that can
Having that
really,
compassion.
yeah, that can really help. And uh to think of it like Kate, you have a brand new grandbaby now,
I
and
do.
to think of treating yourself as kindly and with as much love as you will
yeah.
him when he's frustrated or upset about
It's
something not
very
going their
easy,
way.
though. It's
Yeah,
so easy to
it
do it with other people. And we've
it
talked
is.
about this before, right? So, in all
Mm-hmm.
this self-help and self-growth and all these amazing things that we're learning, I can apply that to everybody else, but
Yes,
applying it to myself, it's
yes,
like, it doesn't happen. But I just wanted to finish the Six of Pentacles
yes.
and Six of Pentacles. So before, just for me, it's like balance, equilibrium, right? And it's in the emotional matter. So when you're dealing with patience, like you have to be able to balance the emotions that you're going to come across. Which is exactly what we were talking about, right? It can get very frustrating. I can get anxious. I can get angry. I can get pissed off. And learning how to balance that with, like, okay, I'm feeling really frustrated, but that's okay. You can feel that way. You can like recognizing, validating, and showing yourself some compassion, which is what we're talking about, for having those emotions instead of throwing yourself off balance with just all of the negativity. It's like accept the negativity, but also add in some of the more positive um, things like, you know what, you're being really patient, or you know what, yeah, you're acknowledging that you're really angry right now, and you're gonna, sit with that for a moment, and then you're gonna do your best to let it go. And that's a great thing. You're acknowledging it, and yeah, that's it.
I love what you're saying with that. There's a concept in yoga called santosha, and it means contentment. And
Mm.
you hear that word contentment and you think, ah, yes, sitting down with a warm blankie and a hot cup of tea. Well, sometimes you have to be content with feeling like crap or
Yeah.
feeling angry and just being like, this is it. This is how it is right now. And I
Just have
just,
to accept it at this moment.
mhm. And
Yeah.
not be mean to yourself about it, which is the
And
trick,
realize that it's
right?
not going to last forever. You
Right.
know,
That's
Yeah.
the biggest part. Yeah.
it's not going to last
That's
forever.
the,
And I'm grown up enough to be uncomfortable for a little while. It's okay.
Yep.
and that's where your
Exactly.
patience comes in, right? Is knowing that the feeling is going to pass. Because if you
Right.
ever go back and you re-examine times where you were angry or frustrated or pissed off, it ended, right? You weren't angry and pissed off for days and days and days, or maybe you were, and then a
Yeah,
week later
but
you
it does
weren't
end
anymore, right? So
eventually.
eventually it
Not
goes
now.
away. Our
Speaking
goal is
of
to not allow it to last as long, right? That's what we work towards, but it happens. You wind up letting it go.
Yeah, and speaking of taking our own advice, that 10 of swords that I got for the first question, and one of the things I wrote down was that I need to take the advice I've given to my friends and just sit with the discomfort of some of these things for a minute before trying to
Yeah.
get up and move on. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember,
Absolutely.
discomfort is not danger.
that's right.
Mm.
And you cannot make progress if you don't have any friction,
That's
you
right.
know? So I got to answer number 4, which is how can I align my goals with the greater good and inspire positive change? And I pulled the King of Wands for that one,
Oh.
which, for me, the kings are a lot about integrity and leading by example. Um, and with the wands, it's like you've got a lot of conviction about whatever you're doing, and it's taking big steps, taking, well, maybe not big, but like maybe sort of like brave or bold actions that really kind of shoot for the moon, um but also they're a king, so they're not going to do anything too crazy. They're not going to risk the whole kingdom on a poker hand.
But
But
they're going to be prepared. That's the thing is
exactly.
the kings being the masters of the suit.
And I
They're
think
going
it's
to be,
it's about like developing leadership skills.
yeah.
I think the King of Wands, and you pulled the Queen of Wands for something earlier, didn't you, Kate?
I did. Yes, I pulled the Queen of
That's what I thought.
Wands for your quirks, and you know how like they talk about you being, like Aquarians are kind of quirky people.
Yeah, yeah, me a little bit.
Not
Yeah,
you,
so
Angie. No.
not me, all of them except for me. But yeah, I thought that was a really good card for that. Kind of pointing me towards the personality traits to try to develop a little bit more, maybe more confidence and like
Definitely.
conviction in what I believe in.
I love
So
that. Yeah,
look out,
confidence
everybody.
and oh my goodness, watch out for Angie. Here she comes.
Well, that was such a good spread, Kate. I really like that.
hmm
That's
It
Thank
was
you,
nice.
thank
really
you, thank you.
insightful.
Yes,
I'm
I
looking forward to sitting down
to
with
what?
it again and pulling all the cards for all the questions too.
Yeah, and that was the other thing too. Like when I was pulling the cards for just the first one, I got so like drawn into it, and I kept like reading things, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be one of those spreads where you really need time to think about and explore each of the questions. Like you can come up with that first intuitive response, right? Which is what
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think we do very well. But I think you can get so much more if you just allow yourself time to really sit, and think about the cards that you pull and how it relates
that's why I
to
liked
each of the questions.
doing these around the new moon because it helps plan. And the new moon isn't like, okay, it's a new moon. I know what my intention is and I know what I'm going for this month. Like, write this day, da 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 da. It's about, it is about slowing down and taking some time. Like, there's the dark moon where you can't see the moon at all. Like, take a few
Yeah.
days with your cards and with your journal and thinking about things and see what it says. And maybe you'll come up with something like, oh, I really want to work on this one thing this month. And maybe you won't. And that's okay too. At least you've busied your mind with something um productive and good for you instead of
Absolutely. And I was thinking too, like, if you are the kind of person that sets an intention, is to not only think about the intention that you want to set, but also to give high priority to how do you want to feel when you attain what it is that you're looking for? Because so much of that process is about how you want to feel, and aligning the actions that you want to take and aligning those actions to the feelings that you want to have. And I think um, many times people will set intentions and they'll come up with their actions and the things that they're going to do and then their end goal. But along the way, you haven't thought about, well, how do I want to feel when I get there? How do I want to feel when I achieve that goal? And are these actions that I'm planning for myself, are they going to make me feel that way? And then also planning for some of the other possible feelings that you might have along the way that, are going to present some resistance, to you. Because I think so much of what we have resistance to are the
it's
way that
exactly what
things
we need.
make us feel.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's that idea, like you were mentioning before, about being vulnerable. And you have to be vulnerable with your feelings. You have to be able to like put your feelings out on the table and acknowledge and say, hey, this is how I feel. And I know that's not a very an Aquarian thing to do,
Hmm.
is to do that, and you were talking before with your question number one about stepping outside of the box, and you mentioned the word vulnerable, and that is not something that many people want to see. That's a word that is not a word in people's vocabulary that they like to use. And
Hmm.
you know so it's important, because part of change is when you accept your vulnerability,
Yeah, and
because
while
And
you're,
the other thing
I'm
to think
sorry, I
about
was,
is also when you've set a goal and you've worked toward a goal, and even if you think about how you feel when you get and you achieve the goal, you've achieved the goal. So now what?
hmm
Because
that's where the
sometimes,
next new moon comes in.
but see, the
yeah,
next sometimes you have this thing that you're trying to accomplish, and it may feel complicated and difficult or whatever, but then you do it, you accomplish it, and you feel good about it. But now it's over, and
yeah,
there's a certain amount of letdown after that. I know I didn't know until later, but I know that after I spent a year, almost a year, training to swim Alcatraz, and I went to San Francisco and I participated in the event, and it was great, and I met the goals that I set for myself. I did everything that I wanted to do. I had a great time, and then I got back home and I was happy about it all for a few days. I'm always happy about it when I think about it. It was a great time in my life. But then after that, because I had been riding my bicycle on a trainer in the garage for, and I had been swimming and I had been I don't run. I will never run, but I had been walking and I actually had my ex had found a heavy bag, like a punching bag, and she'd hung it in the garage, and I was working on that, which I really liked. I stopped all that, stopped it all right after, I'm done, and then after a couple weeks went by, I was like, I'm not feeling so great. I just, didn't. And then later, it took me a while. I looked back and I was like, you didn't have you didn't have a thing that you were working towards, and you just quit those habits that you developed. Not,
And I think when we talk about working towards an intention is really enjoying the things like not everything is going to be fun, even if it's going to lead to your ultimate
yeah,
goal. But
yeah,
if you can keep your eye on, okay, yeah, maybe this is annoying. I'm not having a really good time right now. I'm sweating my face off, or I'm,
and
so
I
tired
mean,
of reading this book or studying
yeah,
this subject, or, but if along the way you can go, but I can see, if I turn around and look back, I can see where I was six
yeah,
months ago and where I am now. And that can be like, yeah, okay, maybe I can take a little break and then come back to it. But,
yeah.
yes, this
But
is still what I,
I kind of, that was the first time I had ever done anything kind of that big, where it took me a long time to get fit for it. I mean, I had been a swimmer my whole life, not competitively, but just because I like to swim. But I was on I didn't work with anybody. I just did this myself, but I knew enough about building up stamina and that kind of thing that I figured out how to do it. And you know, and then afterwards I was just like, now
Well, let
what?
me ask you a question, Linda, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
No, go ahead.
When you were planning this goal, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Did you really like consciously think about like what is it that I want to feel at the end of all of this? Because at some point you had to know that it was going to end, right? You were going to make the swim and you were going to come back and then it was going to be
yeah. No, no,
over. But
not at
what
all.
specifically were
No,
you looking for
I didn't
in,
think about that at all. I just thought
okay.
this is something that I had read an article about somebody who did it somewhere, and I had wanted to do, I had thought about doing a triathlon because everybody else seems to be at ease with the biking and the running and having a hard time with the swim. And it's like the swimming part is what's easy for me, you know. And so I thought, this is just a swim. It's not a triathlon. It's not, something I have to do all these other things for, have all this equipment. All I need is goggles and a swimsuit and maybe a wetsuit. And so that's why I decided to do it. And I paid the money and signed up for it in like December or January, and the swim was in September. So I had 9 months to get ready. And but I didn't think, and I figured I'd do it. I figured I'd complete it because I didn't really. It was not that long. It was like a mile and a quarter, and I already knew I could swim more than a mile in a swimming pool. I just knew that I had to build up my physical strength to swim in open water. But I didn't think anything about how I would feel afterwards. I mean, I figured I'd do it. It'd be fun. I'd be happy that I could do it and say that I did it, which is true.
Do you feel proud of yourself for
Oh,
doing it? Do you
absolutely.
feel proud of
Absolutely.
yourself that you pushed yourself to go a little
Yeah.
bit more than just swimming across? And I think that's something that you hold on to at the end of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I
Like
mean, I didn't feel
if
like,
you're thinking when like if you were to have attached a feeling like how do I want to feel at the end of this, being proud that you were able to accomplish all of these things in
yeah.
your training and then finally do it, that sense of pride is something that you carry around with you
Yeah. I still
forever. It
have that.
is
I mean,
always there.
I never look back and think, oh, that was a waste of time. I never think that. It was great to be able to do that. It taught me a lot about a lot of different things. Um, but I did not anticipate the letdown. And
Mm.
even when I was in it, I was like, what? What's going on? I don't feel so great and I don't know why. And when I, had a little more time had passed and had some time to think about it, it's like, yeah, okay, that's what was going on. And open water swims aren't all that common, so it's not like I could just jump into training for something else because, you know, or go. I guess I could have gone back and done it the next year. I don't know.
Well, still, that's a major accomplishment. Like, I'm not a swimmer. I mean, I can swim, But in order to do that, I don't think I would have been able to
No, I don't
do
think
it.
I want to do that. I love to swim. I love swimming. I love it, but that does not sound like fun to me. That sounds like a bad time.
That
But
was
I'm
so
really
funny
glad you
because
got to do it.
I sent an email, got back, and I was, this was before WhatsApp and all those groups. And I just sent an email to my crone friends. It was like, oh, I had so much fun. It was the group that organized the event. They didn't organize it as a competition. I mean, there were people there who were, I'm sure, trying to swim against their own times or whatever, but it was not like I mean, you had a number and you got a time and all that, but it was not like you were trying to win a race. They wanted everybody to go out there and have a good time, to complete the distance, and to say that they had accomplished it. And I just thought that was a really good atmosphere to be in.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And I was do my email when I get back. It's like, I had so much fun. It was a blast. Blah, blah, blah. One of my friends wrote back, and she was like, I never doubted for a minute that you would finish this because of who you are, and blah, blah. But the word fun just never came to my mind.
Yeah, it sounds so hard to me. I know that, like, I have friends who do these amazing sports things and ski
Oh,
and go
Beth. Oh my
caving and
God, Beth. It's like,
diving and hiking and
oh,
like for 100 miles. I have a friend who ran 100 miles
I
on
know.
purpose, like for
I
fun.
know.
Like, wow, that is so amazing to me. And I never ever want to do that.
I would
It's
run out
not
of a
going to give
burning
you a good
building
feeling at
about
the end.
it.
I mean, it's probably the same way they feel about knitting a sweater. They're like, it's pretty cool you can do that, but I don't want it. I don't want to do it, you know. But yeah,
Yeah. Well,
and keeping
So
your
we've
keeping
gone off on a
your
tangent again, but it was
yeah,
like we were saying about how anticipate how you want to feel. I don't know if I've ever done that. I don't know if I've ever done that.
maybe it's something you want to try, Linda.
yeah,
Maybe
Yeah.
give her a
something for this,
shot.
yeah, maybe for this new moon, thinking, oh, wait, this is perfect. Outside of the box
Yeah.
thinking, right? So maybe pick something and focus more about how you want to feel at the end. And then,
Or
when we
Well,
come to our
I've
next
got a
new
thing
moon
that I've,
circle, you can
I've
give
got a
us
thing
a little information about how it all worked out for you.
I've got a thing
like don't
in
even
life
pick
that
an intention. Just decide how
I
you're
want
going
to
to feel every day
Oh, yeah, I
and
like
work
that
on feeling
idea.
that way every day. Like not even for a reason, just because you're a Linda and Linda should feel nice.
well, I kind of do that. I mean, I kind of do
Yeah.
that. I've started doing some, that meditation in the morning,
Hmm.
but I kind of do get up and I'm like, it's going to be a good day. Things are going to go well. This will be fine. No hiccups,
Now
whatever.
put a feeling word to that because I haven't heard you yet say a feeling word.
What do you want me to do?
I'm just busting
If
your
I feel
chops, Linda.
fine, if I feel
But
fine,
no, fine is
I'm
not a
fine.
feeling word. Listen, go on the internet, look up the mood meter that has feeling words attached to each of the quadrants and pick one of them, either in the yellow or the green, and work on that. That is your assignment.
Very well.
Just busting your
Sorry.
chops, Linda. I'm
That
sorry.
sounds
I
like a good
hope I did.
assignment for everybody, really. Like, I don't think we are taught to really check in with how we want to feel or how we do feel. We're
No,
just
and we
taught
were
to do
talking
what we're
about that.
supposed to do. Yeah.
How do I feel right now? I feel happy. I don't know. Is happy
Yeah.
appropriate?
Happy is a
mean,
word, but
I mean,
I have
what does
higher
happy mean?
expectations for you to come up with a different word than happy because people tend to
But what
go
does
with
happy mean?
happy, angry, or
I
sad.
feel at ease. I
That's
feel
more the green.
I feel content. I
That's
think
more of a
I think
green.
I think contentment is a lot of people think if you're content you've settled, and I think
Mm-mm.
contentment is a goal to achieve.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're not stressed out, when you're not, I think you're just things are good. I'm content. Just like when I moved out, finally got moved out from Glenna, and we got situated, and I got situated in this apartment with Elijah when he was in high school. The biggest feeling that I felt was relief.
Hmm.
And I think the feeling of relief is way, way, way underrated. And I think because I think when you get out from situations or jobs or things that have going on in your life where you don't have stress on you all the time and you don't have somebody looking down over your shoulder or breathing down your neck or whatever, and you're out of that situation, whatever the situation is, I think the sense of relief from that is huge.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
is
Yeah, it's like
huge.
releasing that bundle of wands that you're holding on your back with the
Exactly.
10 of wands
Mhm.
and just letting it go and being
And
like,
maybe
oh,
you're not ecstatically happy because maybe you had to break up with somebody to get that relief and you still have to process that and deal with that. But I think just when, I'd walk in the apartment and be like, oh, there's nobody here going to judge me for leaving a Kleenex on the couch or putting a dish in the sink at 2 o'clock in the
Mm.
morning when I'm at work and I can't wash it because I got to go back to work. That kind of thing. It's like, that was huge. That was huge.
Mhm. Yeah, I had a
yeah.
brief moment of panic when I got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And then after that, it was just like, oh my God, I hated this job so much. They have done me the biggest
Yeah.
favor by setting me free from this horrible, horrible thing that I would have never quit because we've already talked about that. I'm a little bit
Yeah,
sorry.
well, it took a lot of, the universe had to really come down on my head in about 4 or 5 different ways. They converged right there. And finally I was just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah,
Okay.
same. I don't
I'm
take subtle
listening.
hints. I
I
don't take
know.
subtle
Yeah.
hints. I'm I'm aware of that. This is something I'm working on. Okay, you guys. But
Yes,
this
well,
was so much fun.
it definitely was, and I'm thankful to our listeners for joining us today. And leave a comment and let us know if you did set an intention or if you wanted to share any of your polls or any insights that you may have received from your polls. Please, leave us a comment and let us know. We would love to read them if you don't mind in our next episode.
If you have any questions,
Yes,
we'll be happy to try to answer them too.
that's
Absolutely,
true.
absolutely. Well, ladies, it was wonderful.